Still starting. Countdown to 47.
Hello, and welcome to a Bon
Someone
Mott's
should have grabbed
production
that
of
earlier. Perhaps me. Perhaps you. I don't know.
That is the spot.
Where we review critically acclaimed cinema
It's on me.
spanning the breadth of human filmmaking.
Anyway.
Spoilers, mature content, inappropriate
I decided
language.
that I
Join
should
us.
Should it?
So,
And then we're coming up to 47. So here we go and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening, and welcome back to Masterpiece Theatre. Tonight we are reviewing number 31, The Maltese Falcon. I'm Jonathan Ian Manser, here with the Lost Signal's own fat man, Stephen Ramosi.
rude.
And shut the fuck up, Joel Cairo, with your fake name, Scott Booth.
Please, you must give me a better name.
Hello there.
So, as you can imagine, we are discussing The Maltese Falcon, which is known as one of the greatest movies of all time, and we will determine if that is true.
We'll see.
Listen, we give you your first and last stop on this.
Exactly. So I'm going to start with a funny log line, as per usual. You make a hell of a Caucasian, Winston.
Damn right.
Which is a complex reference.
If you get it, good on you.
And I'm also going to start with the intro by the conclusion. So, in the most generic film noir plot line I've seen to date, Humphrey Bogart, as the private eye, gets in this complicated mess with Churchill, Ren from Ren and Stimpy, some crazy broad, and Benny Blanco.
Which is even a more elaborate reference, but it's still awesome.
To obtain the MacGuffin of all MacGuffins, the Maltese Falcon.
The
MacGuffin. Just your description of this is the reason why this movie is so highly regarded, because it's where all of those things that you just referenced
That is what I was
started.
going to say as well.
First of all,
Go on.
for instance, the reference to Ren, was Peter Lorre, that's the guy?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. It's a reference to him, but not necessarily from this movie. He's played the same
Probably
Ren,
Casablanca.
He's the same guy in Casablanca, yes, that is true.
But here's I have issues with this movie. And I know it's supposed to be one of the great, and I love film noir. And perhaps the great fault in this is that I became a fan of like Chinatown and L.A. Confidential.
Sure.
It
Long
came out too
before-
early.
What?
You think this movie came out too early?
No,
it was too on the cutting edge.
I saw it too late to appreciate it as
I get that.
a progenitor for what
Right.
came. And I was disappointed on in a sense, it is a nuanced film, but it's not as nuanced as later film noirs would be. And so one of my big problems is that it's like in Chinatown. I believe, like, and I think this is what's great about film noir. Yeah, a lot of film noir deals with topics that are like inherently absurd, but they're believable in the situation. This is like watching a cartoon almost, with how over the top all these characters are, and it breaks me out of my immersion in the film. That and also I have to bring this up now. And it's going to bring it up later. Is that the dialogue is very fast paced. I know you said it's Aaron Sorkinish.
Yeah.
I felt, I can see where you're saying with that, but I felt it was almost like I'm reading it. Listening to an audiobook on like 1.5 speed.
We did all say that, true.
And it makes it hard. I understand the plot. It's not a complicated plot, really, but I feel like they're shoving a ton into a short amount of time, and I think the film suffers for that. And it becomes complicated not from a narrative standpoint, but it becomes a complicated fact of they're just speed talking through necessary plot points.
So I don't think that it I do see what you're saying insofar as like it makes it's a I would say this perhaps an early attempt at this type of dialogue, right? Where there's you have your latter day like Sorkin, even Gilmore Girls type of dialogue, and you laugh, but like that's what you mean. Those are the things that are known for this type of dialogue these days, right? That it's that same type of dialogue. It's very fast. It's very fast paced. You have to be paying attention. It comes at you like beat after beat after beat after beat, every scene, and it is. I don't know where this comes from really. What the progenitors of this are. I'm guessing that like there's something that made. I don't even know who the director is. I don't remember who the director is.
John Huston, I think.
Right. There's something that makes him think that this is a way to go. That is, that'll work, and it does. Like it's actually a very good film. Maybe shouldn't be as highly rated as it is in my mind, but still a very good film. I think that the plot is simple but nuanced, as you referenced in your when you were speaking about it. I like the way that it rolls, I guess. I'm probably going to give this a 3, just to jump right out in front of it. I liked the intro that you get. I like the body that you get. I like the everything in the middle. Nothing seems to sag to me. Right? There's a lot going on, and like some parts are more important than others. And perhaps you guys will speak to that. But there's no point in this movie where I was bored by it. There's no part in this movie that I think that we're missing something, or like not sure. Either we're missing something or something can be cut and it will not be missed, right? And the end of it is, while it's now kind of obvious, I think at the time it was really groundbreaking, and I enjoy it for that. Like where you're saying like all these things that kind of bugged you about it, or that it felt cartoonish, right? The idea that this is what cartoons are comes from movies, specifically this, and movies like this, right? Like that wasn't a thing in cartoons before this movie, or perhaps. Or others. I guess what I'm saying is I don't think this movie takes from cartoons before it. I think that cartoons take a lot more from this movie than this takes from them.
All right, this is going to be a rare comment about movies in general. This had 2 flaws that I think are very important. One, it attempted to be... I never read the source material. But I feel it attempted to be perfectly faithful to the source material. And that is why there are scenes in it where you're given a lot of, in a way, unnecessary information because they felt that it was they needed to be faithful.
There's a lot of exposition.
Secondly, it's a shorter movie. It's an hour and 40-something minutes.
Yeah.
You're trying to fit. It's almost unwieldy in trying to be completely faithful in that time frame. So yes, there are never parts that lag. There are never parts that feel that are being cut out. In fact, it just feels too jam-packed and
rushed, perhaps.
And there's parts that are rushed. And I think that it should mean 20 minutes, half hour longer, would have been very serviceable to this film, because there's parts in it where they're trying to build tension, but
there's no time for tension.
You don't have time to build that tension because you have to get information out there. And I'm going to give it a 2 overall because I feel that while it is a fine narrative, it's just too faithful in too short of a time.
What do you take off on in that case?
I would say the body then.
Okay.
If we're gonna limit
that would be my guess for you. All right, like so. It's really funny that you say that because I don't think any one of us has ever said this movie should be longer.
That's why I said it would be a rare content.
In any,
he did qualify.
In any, like we've done, almost 300 episodes now. If we haven't passed 300 at this point,
more over 300 for sure.
And
landmark.
I'm not sure that we have ever once said this movie should be longer. That we have often talked about scenes that we think could be cut out.
Yes. We have now once said it should be longer. Okay, sorry.
No, Scott.
So I'm gonna jump in. Just I don't like the movie. I guess I'll be brief and quick. That I see what you mean. Like because of that, and this will definitely go back to dialogue when we get to it and style. I think a little bit, but yeah, because they seem to have to like not vomit exposition, but get it through it very quickly. And even the conversation themselves are like, oh, what? Check it. It's a One of Life episode as well to see what I mean. But just in general, I was wavering upon 2 or 3, and I'm still pretty close. But I think at the end of the day, it's almost like weirdly reversed. That yes, I see what you mean, and it could be like maybe distracting at the clipped pace that people are saying the things that they're saying, and the plot is like moving along, kind of chugging along pretty quickly. I think it could be given time, a little bit more room to breathe, but I think I'm going to come down that because it's a simple narrative at the end of the day, and also to what you said, yeah, you've seen so many things like it because of this movie. Mm-hmm. And I know that's sort of like, going back to look at the source material, sometimes can be like, oh, it's a little more bare bones, because so many things that built upon it later fleshed it out and like improved upon it. I still think it stands on its own. I think there's nothing wrong with the narrative, and that any nitpick I could point out would go to like other questions that I'm going to probably give it a 3.
In no way am I suggesting that it is unoriginal in any way.
Sure.
And it is very, like, you've seen a lot of the derivatives of it. I'm just saying that the pacing was off for me.
All right. And I can see why you would say that. But I still think for myself, I'll give it a 3, and I'll take points away probably here and there from other questions. Mm-hmm. But New Rod Inclusion, I think I'm going to give full credit for.
All right.
Yeah, I agree. Full credit. Sorry.
Steven.
Yes.
On to you with themes.
All right. So this is an interesting movie. There are some credible themes in this movie insofar as there is the idea of like who can you trust, that type of thing, which is heavily film noir type of theme.
Yep.
There's the idea of this this object of unknown origin and incredible value that you see pop up a lot in future films. Pulp Fiction,
the $1 Million MacGuffin,
is a big one that a lot of people equate with this, obviously.
Just one quick. Not only do you know the origin of this, the original.
That's true.
It's not quite
Kroll. It gives you the origin.
You're right.
And then Churchill gives, or Sidney Greenstreet, who I love as an actor, gives a very good but very
he builds upon that background.
You're right. It's a very known origin in this, but it's that object of like.
A lost artifact, pretty much.
Yeah. Despite the fact that you know what it is, you don't... It's kind of like this I don't know what the exact right word is, but like this crazy, expensive, valuable thing from long in the past that... And that's another good point. You do get a very good long dialogue about why it is so valuable and why it's so sought
unique,
after.
Yes.
But that's one of the. I think that's the theme of this film. But really, the big one I think is the first thing that I mentioned. Like, who can you trust? What is like when you seek something like this, when you seek something that is super valuable, or when you seek this type of wealth, who is on your side, who's not on your side, and like can you believe anybody when they say that they are on your side? Go ahead.
I have two rebuttals to that quickly.
Sure.
One, this is the precursor to National Treasure.
Well, we just added that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You. I think you actually came up with that idea. But it's the same idea of let me give you a long expedition over this lost object that we're all going to be fighting over. And two, yes, it is very difficult when four cartoonishly shady characters enter your life and who you can trust.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, that's funny as hell. But I mean, to what Steve said, I mean, it's glaringly obvious that it's a classic noir theme. Like, you get wrapped up in a little plot, and you're like, oh, who's doing what, who's double dealing, what angle are they playing, blah, blah, blah. And I think that was pretty well handled, like, throughout. I think it was pretty, like, yes, even filtered through the shadiest characters in the world, as you said, like, obviously shady, but that's just how it is in a noir film, and especially one from this era.
Yeah.
So I don't know what else to say about it. I think it was pretty well handled, and I think when we get to the protagonist, I think Sam Spade, i.e. Humphrey Bogart, as a detective, played that role very well with getting wrapped up into all this stuff and being capable and intelligent and commenting upon like how he knows who to trust or how much they're lying or what they're holding back, what he's holding back from them. So I think that theme is pretty obvious, and maybe you can pick out like smaller ones therein, but that seems to me like the biggest one, and I think the movie itself handles it and integrates it pretty well.
Yeah, I would like to expand upon the idea of the treasure aspect, because that's the message behind the treasure, and is often a fool's gold type thing.
Right.
But this one hammers it home that people are dying
Made of lead.
over what they presume to be a treasure when it's in fact not. And I think they bring up that point even harder than, let's say, Indiana Jones or Raiders of the Lost Ark, when
Crystal Skill.
Yeah. But
Nope, never mind.
there's also a strong theme of bros before hoes.
What?
Again, that's an artifact of the era, I would say.
Well, yeah,
But-
but
Hold on,
at the
explain yourself.
At the very end, when he
I
decides
know what you're
to
gonna
turn
say.
in
Mrs. O'Shaughnessy.
Mr. O'Shaughnessy.
crazy broad, who is
Over-
appealing
but-
to.
But who was this before?
She's appealing to this great romance that they have, which
Over the course of 4 days, I guess. Yeah, go on.
And he goes,
Unbelievable.
"Sorry, babe, you killed my partner. And even if I didn't like my partner and I was sleeping with my partner's wife,
Which I
I
am.
still gotta
She was.
take you.
You're still gonna go down, and I gotta keep. I gotta defend his
because
team.
bros before.
I mean, that's funny, I guess, but maybe not funny, but amusing that you inserted it.
Yeah, that's
he gave an
Sure.
end speech on that.
I mean, you can make a valid case based on that. I agree, but I'm gonna give it a 1 for the themes that Steve and I just said of the, just the general honor or dishonor amongst thieves, and when you get wrapped up in that kind of crowd.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 1. Just seeing what this movie birthed, right? Like in terms of those types of themes.
Sure.
I'm going to
Just-
quote you, Steve. Oh,
Sure.
sorry, go on.
Go- No. Where are you gonna
All
quote?
right, you said
Allow me to retort.
to
quote Pulp Fiction, the movie that I was talking about.
You said about halfway through the film, maybe a little bit more than that. Before that,
Mhm.
there must be symbolism in this scene, but it's moving so quickly that I can't
possible
pick it
to
out.
Process it, yeah.
That was what was the thing? I forget. There was something in that scene that was like glimpsed on for
Yeah,
a
you forget because it
second,
went by
and
so
then
fast.
Yeah.
And overall, again, this is going to be the running thing that, I'm going to have to give it a 0 because it's either a general point that you've seen prior to it, thematically, or any nuance that they wanted to add in just went by so quickly.
I get where you're coming from, but I'm still gonna give it a solid 1 at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 1. I think I did a good job. There were points where I wish that it had lingered a little bit, but the non-lingering didn't kill the theme for me. Let's say that.
Yeah.
All right, Scott, onto you with antagonist.
All right, so I'm going to go my classic fallback. It's an abstract one. It's the greed of people chasing a ostensibly valuable object that no one really knows exactly what it is, or they think they do, but really it's not, like you said, the fool's gold kind of thing, and screwing over other people that you know in the process because you're clamoring to get to it, which maybe sort of ties into themes as well. But I think it was pretty effective. Like everyone, I guess we can say the Maltese Falcon itself might be the antagonist, really, because it's the object everyone is tripping over themselves to get to, and fucking everyone else over in the process if they think they can actually get to it because they think it will bring them untold riches, or the famous line, "It's what dreams are made of." So I think that's a pretty obvious antagonist. I don't think, and I mean, you guys tell me if you do have an argument for any character or persona in the film being the antagonist. I don't think that's true.
Fat Man.
I mean, maybe, but at best he was affably evil, I would say. But that doesn't make him an antagonist. He was part of the little, like, everyone else chasing around the Falcon, and Sam Spade getting wrapped up into it.
I kind of wish we did Big Lebowski prior to this, so I could view how he did antagonists there.
Sure.
Because in a sense you have a whole cast of would-be antagonists. Humphrey Bogart, in being an idealized kind of private eye,
Just the dude.
never feels.
He's not really threatened by anything.
No, he never. He's always in control of every situation.
He's outwitting everybody.
Yeah.
That's actually why I think I'm going to give this a 0.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm leaning towards. Kind of my argument that even though like the Maltese Falcon, like the greed of people, it's a good one, I guess, but I don't know if it's enough there to to cement it into like an actual antagonist.
Yeah, I never feel that the protagonist, Humphrey Bogart,
is antagonist by anything. Yes,
by anything in this movie. He always seems like he's on top of everything, and you know, that's not necessarily. I know that I like this movie probably, well, definitely better than you, Ian.
It's going to be close between.
I don't know about you, Scott, but like I enjoy this movie. But I don't like. I enjoy this movie as like this movie's pretty funny, like in its speed, its witticisms, and things like that. But it's not a tense movie by any means.
Yes,
which it is meant to be, and it is supposed to be a tense movie because it's it's film noir, and B, just by the virtue of what the plot is, this should be a tense movie, and it's really not.
Yeah, I pretty much agree.
To that end, I'm not going to give it a 1 for antagonist because of all the reasons that I just said.
No, I mean, I don't know much more to add up, but I'll just piggyback on you that, yeah, while maybe once upon a time I could convince myself to give the theme of greed, chasing a fool's gold MacGuffin down might be that, but as we said, as we'll get to in the next question, the protagonist himself is in fact pretty much one step ahead of everybody, is never really threatened. He can outwit and outfight or frisk, if you will, all the other characters who may be threatening him. So there really is no tension, even though the movie wants you to think there is. So
he disarms people like 4 times in this movie. Like what?
The same guy
is that
twice.
Necessary, man?
Yeah. So for all that, I also probably leaning toward a 0.
So the only thing that antagonizes him in this entire film is the potential threat to his being locked up for murdering his...
Yeah, for being framed for it.
Yeah. So, in a way, you could feel the police are the antagonists here, but I think it's a stretch.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but like it never even feels like that he is concerned about that, right? Like so that
he's always on one step ahead of them too. So yeah.
So in a way, the villains here seem like the collected like Carmen Sandiego villains.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Which is funny because at the end of the film, they're basically
I don't remember.
The ones who are left are going on a Carmen Sandiego adventure, if you recall that. So
I don't know. I like the characterization. I think that the most effective was Fat Man, because
Mr. Gutman.
Yeah, Mr. Gutman. Because and again, it's a pun name. These are Carmen Sandiego villains. My God. But Sidney Greenstreet is a phenomenal actor.
Yeah,
and he
does
did
a great
the most with what he did. So I'm going to give the collective because there's some great actors playing the villains, and although they aren't necessarily effective villains, I think that we're told they are, and I enjoyed watching them.
The film wants you to think they are, but
giving it a 1.
I'm going to give this a 1.
I'm going to 0, but we'll get to it in a sec. But what you just said, I'm going to lump that under secondary, probably. Just as a sort of precursor. But I'm sticking with the 0 for antagonist for now.
All right, and it's on to me with protagonists. So this is interesting because why you gave the antagonists a 0 is why I may give the protagonist a 0.
Right.
I love me some Bogart.
Yeah.
The thing is, he's almost too perfect.
He's almost
I knew you
too
were gonna fucking say
protagonist.
that. And it's not that I disagree, but I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, and
Go
he's and I like a little bit of a cocky hero, but he's just being smug throughout this.
He's just trolling everybody.
Yeah, it actually got on my nerves. I brought it up a couple times
did?
while we were watching.
He did?
Like where he's telling Peter Lorre that take the slap and lick it. I wanted to slap that smug smile off his face through a lot of this. And if I actively dislike the protagonist unintentionally,
No matter what, sure.
then I think I might have to give it a 0. Convince me otherwise.
I mean, I get that. It's your gut feeling. And I see, I knew you were going to fucking say the fact that because he's basically a Marty Stu or whatever, like
Gary Stu,
sure, whatever interpretation, variation that you want of it. Yeah, he's never really, he's one step ahead of everybody. He's got all the skills he needs. So therefore, he's not really going to be, or isn't threatened, even though the film sort of wants you to think that, or tries its best to convince you of that. But the funny thing is, at the other the coin is that because of that, he is an effective protagonist. And yeah, he's kind of a smarmy dick, as the 1940s like era of male actor, I would say, was Bogart style. Even he's kind of the same way in Casablanca, just maybe not to the same extent. But he's still kind of like, the laid back, like above it all, like I'm better than everybody, I'm smarter at least than everyone, I know what's going on, I can handle it all.
Guess what? He had flaws. I want to bring up another film noir.
Right.
Chinatown. Jack Nicholson also plays a smarmy.
Sure.
But
much more complex.
And it was. And
I get
maybe
that.
it's not fair to compare it to other works within the genre, especially since it was an earlier one.
Yeah, it was.
But I can't help but think that
much later.
It's too pure of a protagonist for me to at all care or identify
Sure.
with him.
Like I said, I completely get it. I'm never going to convince you. I'm just saying, I think narratively, I'm going to give him a 1. Sam Spade is good at his job. He knows what he's doing. He knows he's got his goal in mind. And he's basically, like I said, outwits everybody. He sees through most people's deceptions. And if they do get one over on him, he was able to counter that pretty quickly. So I think just in terms of effectiveness and in terms of plot, I think he does a good job. And yeah, like you said, like me some Humphrey as well. He's always pretty solid in this era of films. And maybe while not his best one, I still think he's going to get a 1 from the antagonist angle from me.
I'll agree with you guys. I really like Humphrey Bogart. However, I think I'm going to side with Ian on this. He breezes through this plot way too easily. And, I don't dislike him in this movie. However, as a protagonist, I want to see you go through
some struggles,
some issues. And
I get it.
If I don't see that, or if I'm not convinced of it, which, he has struggles to go through in this movie, but I'm never once convinced that it's an issue for him.
Sure, I get it.
And that's the problem that I have with it. And that's, I think, I went into this thinking I was going to get, you asked me to convince you of something, but I think you convinced me pretty early on that I'm going to give this a 0, because I went into this thinking that I would give him a 1 just based on the strength of Humphrey Bogart's acting, because he's a great actor. He does he does a fine job in this movie. He
does what the script tells him to do.
He's fucking Humphrey Bogart. He Humphrey Bogarts his way through this fucking movie, and it's great. It's an enjoyable part, but when you actually go back and think about it, he doesn't have problems.
Actually, no. I thought of one humorous thing. Maybe it goes back to antagonist. This is not a serious point, but I do want to point it out regardless. His problem is juggling 3 women at the same time. Like, that's his biggest issue.
Yeah.
Really, not actually tracking down or dealing with shady thieves who are trying to kill him.
Except for that's not a problem for him either.
Right, it's even less of a problem, is what I'm saying.
That's not a problem for him
Like
either.
I said, his biggest problem is juggling 3 women in his life.
His biggest problem is that his dead partner's wife is a clinger.
Right.
Like, that's his biggest...
Yeah,
He shoves her out of the out of the
And she's barely in the
whatever,
film.
the office like 3 times. He's like,
Yeah.
that's it. I'm
I don't
done
wanna-
with you.
Yeah, I don't want to dwell on that point. I just wanted to bring
Thanks
it up.
for bringing me the Falcon. Is that her that brings him the Falcon?
No.
Oh, yeah,
It's the secretary, the third woman in his life, as I said. So I just wanted to briefly touch on that humorously, but I am going to stick with the one. But I see you guys' point
Whatever.
on it.
They make the women completely forgettable in this movie, which is another.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate
flaw.
artifact of the 40s. Go on.
Anyway, I'm going to give it a 0.
All right. Well, continue talking about supporting. Steven.
Okay. I actually really like most of the supporting characters in this movie. I'm not going to remember any of their names. Don't ask me to.
Shady Peter Lordy.
Please
Yeah.
tell me their names.
Except for Joel Cairo, who
And
was
Mr. Gutman, you can't
awesome.
remember his name either.
Gutman was theoretically
Oh,
the
right.
antagonist,
Fair enough.
so I wasn't
Go on.
going to include him, but he did a great job too. The women in their parts had good roles. I wish they weren't shunted away so easily from this script, because I thought O'Shaughnessy, Mrs. O'Shaughnessy, and
If that is a real name.
right, and
Sure.
the wife, both in their Mrs. O'Shaughnessy had a fairly decent role actually, and I thought she did a great job, and I thought she was a good side character. The Archer's wife, I forget what her name is.
Mrs. Archer.
Yeah,
We'll go with
Mrs. Archer. I thought that she had a good start to a role in this movie, and then kind of was left behind and forgotten.
Yeah.
But they were good. Who's the patsy? I forget what his name is.
Vilmer, I think.
Wilmer? No.
Wilmer or Vilmer.
Is it
Wilmer,
Wilmer? Yeah. He was fine. Actually, he was
Billy the
probably the weakest
Yes.
of the supporting
I
characters.
agree to that.
But on the strength of the ones that I mentioned, I thought that supporting was pretty good. I don't know if you have anybody else to mention yet.
No, I don't. So I'll out what I said. I'm going to lump them all, even Mr. Gutman, into secondary. I think they all did a pretty good job. Yes, Wilmer, I believe, I agree, Steve was kind of the weakest. He did a fine job, but Gutman is definitely one of the standouts. And yes, while, again, an artifact of the sexism of the 40s, so the women didn't have a prominent role, but Mrs. O'Shaughnessy, I think, was a complex character.
She actually did have a pretty
Yeah,
prominent
she had a
role.
good arc, and she was essentially she's basically the femme fatale of this noir film, like more or less. I think she fulfilled that role pretty well. And everyone else around it, like again, Joe Cairo is always going to be like the little shady, like we're going to get the Falcon. Like he just has that that voice. It's like screams noir.
Stimpy.
And he just
Well, it screams noir because he is
right.
the beginning of noir. you know?
Exactly. So like he's always gonna be that sort of slick, shady, like in the background, like if you help us, we can compensate you, and all that. So like it's all very well done. There's not that many characters overall, but I think they all collectively do a damn good job and round it all out. So like I said, I'm going to lump Gutman as well into it and give them all a very strong 1.
Yeah.
So I lumped most of those people into antagonist. And I would like to talk about the role of women in this film.
I guess the cops were there too, as well. Before you go on,
They were very one-dimensional
Yes,
type.
true.
And so, what's the femme fatale's name?
O'Shaughnessy.
Mrs. O'Shaughnessy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was a very complicated character. I put her in antagonist, but like, I think one of the more interesting characters was the secretary.
Okay.
It's a good call.
Because in one sense, she's a very stereotypical, like female kind of subservient role that you would expect to see out of a 1940s film. But she's hyper competent.
Yeah.
She seems to have, in a way, like Humphrey Bogart is very misogynistic to women throughout this. He almost has a weird kind of respect.
I don't know if he's
level for the
misogynistic,
secretary.
but he's certainly sexist.
Yeah. But he seems to have a certain like kind of respect level with the secretary. That yeah, he has pet names for her, but like in a way he treats.
He trusts her the most.
Yeah, she knows the most out of everyone besides Humphrey Bogart, and like it almost seems like he understands that he wouldn't be able to function if not for her in the role. Like she's more of a partner than Miles was, and for that role particularly, I'm going to give this a 1 because I think she's an interesting character to
I think you're right.
analyze.
I think you're right. I think you kind of come out. Not that I wasn't convinced, but it's almost as if you're saying she's both a stereotype, but also subversion on a stereotype, like at the same time.
It's a really weird
But I
thing
agree.
to say,
It's
but-
still pretty standout. So
I dig it.
good point.
Okay, so Scott,
Was that ones all around, by the way?
That was
I believe
ones
it
all
was.
around.
Yep.
All right.
dialogue with you.
Yes. What's that? Let's talk really fast right now. Go. All right. The Maltese Falcon is coming in on the boat, and we gotta go get it. I mean, like, it's fine, but as we said, like, it can be a little jarring, at least at first, at the clipped rate at which characters are speaking to each other, and in fact, at times almost over each other, which is we ourselves are no stranger to that. But at the same time, it's somewhat stilted. It's almost like a stage play, but not quite. And again, it's going to be that way, sort of, because of the artifact of the time in which this film was made, and the framework of it. But I do like I think many of the lines were well done when they were slowed down, or we were able to catch enough of it to like hear. There's some good insults traded back and forth. There's some good like plotting and so forth, and the meetings between Sam Spade and Gutman and his henchmen, and when Joe Cairo was there too as well. All that stuff I think was pretty damn solid, and anything that I thought was like nothing was cringeworthy per se, but some of it may have been like just a little. Again, it was hard to catch, or it was a bit of it was exposition-y, we'll say, but it wasn't too egregious. And overall, I think it was fine. It was snappy enough, and yes, Humphrey and everyone else has a lot of charisma. They carried it very well. They worked with the lines they were given. So I think I'm going to give it like more credit than not, and give it like maybe a soft or solidish 1 overall. But I can't complain too much about it.
All right, while I'm talking, can you remember that one line?
All right, I believe it was, so Vilmer is ostensibly escorting Sam Spade to Gutman's hotel room, but Sam Spade quickly turns upon him and basically calls him out for being like a low-level thug. He's like, oh, the lower class, the henchman, the higher, the gaudier, the patter of it. Because Vilmer threatens him like sort of weakly. So yeah, it has like, again, the artifact of the lingo and the slang of the time and all that. But I mean, that's fine because of the era in which it was made. So like I said, pretty overall solid 1 from me.
So I'm going to say something. I already deducted points for the speed of the dialogue. And so I'm not going to twice
double
punish
down. Yes.
This movie. So I think perhaps this movie actually benefited dialogue-wise from the speed. Because
right, in a bizarre way,
the
kind of.
heavy exposition dumps
We're over quickly.
well, that's the thing. It's like they felt
because of that.
Sorkin-ish in a way.
Yeah.
And it was, because it got over quickly, it never felt like, I recognize it exposition, but it never felt weighty as exposition.
Well said.
And there are good lines, and yes, sometimes dated lines, but still like fun kind of 40s. And Humphrey Bogart does a great quip. Sidney Greenfield does a great kind of maniacal penguin.
They're going back and forth and stuff. Yeah.
And Peter Lorre he could say anything. Yeah. And it comes off.
It would seem a little
fascinating to listen
unnerving.
Yeah. So I'm going to give it a pretty strong 1.
I would agree with that. I think that while there was exposition and sometimes there was heavy exposition, this dialogue in this movie was well above average. And I think that's the best way I can explain it, right? Like there's a lot of really good dialogue in this movie, whether or not it went by too quick to get it sometimes, maybe. But when you catch it, like there were a lot of times when I found myself very much chuckling at witty lines and things like that, like many times throughout this movie. It's I guess to compare it to another Bogart movie, it was almost Casablanca-ish in its dialogue at certain points.
Almost, but not quite. But I see what you mean.
But it doesn't reach that level. Like, I'm not trying to claim that it does, but like there is a lot of really good, really witty dialogue in this movie.
I agree.
And it is nowhere near the baseline of like okay dialogue, right? It's well above that, I would say. And yeah, there are some like lines, but there are a lot more really good lines in this.
Actually, just to build off you quickly, if Casablanca is one of the great dialogue movies of all time.
The greatest, I think.
Yeah, and Key Largo is that bass line you're talking about. This movie's more towards Casablanca than Key Largo.
I like that. Okay. I like that measuring stick. And,
I agree.
I'll agree with it as well.
Okay, so we all give me ones for this?
Yep, ones all around.
All right, and then I'm onto style, and I'm going to pass this along quickly, but I think that one of the reasons this movie has the reputation it does is because of how it developed film noir style.
Yeah.
From cinematography to
lighting,
shadows, everything like that. Is it the best? No, but it is.
Is it the first
innovative.
to do a lot of that stuff? Yeah.
Yes.
It's goddamn solid for sure, yeah.
And like music wise, like it has this ambiance to it.
I think it matched fine.
Actually, I think this is the one I can compare it to the most, since we watch a lot of these on AFI Westerns now. You can obviously tell the different time periods of Westerns. And we're going to time periods of film noirs. This is the early days. And like the early Westerns, it's not quite what you expect from later, but you can see how it influenced what came. And that's what's important for this. So I'm going to give it a 1, but I'll pass it on to you guys.
Yeah, you basically stole all of the things that I was going to say. I guess I'll expand a little bit upon... I actually thought the music was phenomenal in this movie. I thought that it matched...
Good.
I thought that it matched the tone of the film really well at every point. And like this is something that I was like really paying attention to after the first, 15, 20 minutes of the movie, because I had noticed it in the beginning and I was like, oh, let me see if this, and then like every time that I was thinking about it, I looked at I listened to the music and it was perfectly what I wanted it to, like what that should be. And like if nothing else, like you were mentioning, like the shadowing, the dark light ratio, all those things. Like this is early noir. Like those things weren't perfected, but I think that perhaps the best thing that could have been taken out of this was the sound design. And the sound design was phenomenal in this movie, especially in terms of the soundtrack. I honestly, I'm not even talking about the sound effects, things like that. Yeah. Like those weren't stand out to me. I'm sure they were fine, but I didn't really notice them as much. But like the actual soundtrack, the music, the backing music was really good in this, and I want to give a specific shout out to that because I really liked it a lot.
Yep, that's all fair. You guys particularly said. If there was anything left to say, I don't know if I have it, but I mean, for every point you made, I think it deserves a 1. Yeah, it's an early iteration, and it's a recognizable noir style, and it had to come from somewhere, and a lot of it comes from this, and it still stands cinematography-wise. We even said, like, early on, I believe one of us, Sibo, you were like, oh, that's a great shot, and that didn't really let up. And the score as well matched perfectly throughout for every scene, and I got to give it a lot of credit on style front.
Okay, so it's 1s for everyone?
Yep.
All right, so Steve, on to our final category, recommendation.
Pardon me. Yeah, I absolutely do recommend this movie. So this is a movie that I watched early on when I was pretty young because my dad loved it, and I actually haven't seen it in 13, 14 years, and we were gonna Full disclosure, right? We were going to watch a different movie earlier today, and I'll leave that
last minute decision.
I'll leave that as a surprise.
We auto-board it pretty much
for a movie that's going to be. We'll probably watch that next month. But we were going to watch a different movie, and we changed it to this last minute earlier today. And when we decided that we were going to watch Maltese Falcon, I was like, oh, cool! I haven't seen that movie in a very long time, and it's something that I watched a bunch when I was like a kid, when I was very small to like a young teenager, maybe like 13 years old. And I just probably haven't seen it since I was 15 or so.
Yeah.
And it's still it's still a very good movie in my eyes. I really like it. It's not the same movie that it was. What the fuck just happened?
I think we ran out of room on the... And welcome back. We went out for... we lost the recording on...
Lost our signal.
Hi, welcome back. We lost our... we had too much information on our camera, so we decided to go for a smoke break.
Too many
Picked up a straggler. Hey, Rich, how you doing?
How you doing?
Yeah. And Steve-O, you have anything else to say off of your rant on your recommendation?
You know what? We were listening to the end of it, and I think I was pretty much done. So I'm going to let you guys go.
Superb. Scott, on to you with recommendation.
All right, so it's kind of similarly. I saw Maltese Falcon most recently in a sophomore year college film class, and thought it was pretty good then. Like, it was basically to see, as we said the whole time, how and why noir came from and how it works. So yeah, it's still fine. It's still pretty solid. I don't know if I recommend it outright, like broadly. I'd say sort of like it's good to, as I said, to study in a film class. Yes, you can study the techniques, etc. But would I recommend it just for a watch, even it being a classic movie and number 31 on the list? I'm not sure. I'm kind of wavering, so I'm going to go on to E, and maybe he can convince me one way or another.
Well, first of all, Rich, would you recommend Maltese Falcon?
I think I would. I like the placement of the shots. Story seems pretty good from what little I'd seen.
No. Before we go on, may I ask how much of Maltese Falcon you have seen?
21 minutes.
And based on that, he does recommend it.
He did catch the last 21 minutes.
Yeah,
So
that's all you need to see. So
all you need
your
to know.
opinion will be acknowledged but ignored. So I'll give my recommendation. As you have listened to this, you have already guessed my opinion. I was not the biggest fan of Maltese Falcon. And oddly enough, like, even with, I would say, the maturation of my taste in cinema as we've done this podcast, my opinion still remains firm on the Maltese Falcon. I wasn't the biggest fan. I'm still not the biggest fan. I think it's an okay movie, but as you said, Scott, if you're studying the history of film, I think this is an important film to watch. If you are looking for a good film noir, there are other much better films out there. And this is, film noir is one of my favorite genres, if not my favorite. And this is one of my least favorite within that genre. Not that there's anything particularly wrong with this movie, and I've already said my piece on that. It's just, I don't know, like, watch Chinatown, watch LA Confidential, watch any of the other great ones. Or what was the one we did way back in the day, Steve-O, that we were really, really drunk for?
Touch of Evil.
Oh, Touch of Evil.
Also,
listen,
of course.
First of all, I think this is a better movie than Touch of Evil.
I agree. And that's the point I want to make, that, yeah, you have worse film noirs than this. But,
and that was
so much better as well. Double Indemnity. So many good ones. So many good ones.
I think you might have swayed me on that one. Like, I think it's more of a narrow recommendation if I was going to. Something broadly, like maybe a soft 0. But yeah, there are others. This is a good film, a fine film. Like I said, like we all said, don't get us wrong. But I don't think it's just enough to get there. Like, I don't know if it deserves number 31 on the fucking list either. Sure, you could put it on the list, maybe lower down, maybe mid-50s or something if I had to like rearrange it. But I don't think I'm going to recommend it at this moment. So
I see why it's on number 31 because of the influence.
It's influence, yes, but
the AFI is all about not what is, but what
came from it.
Yeah, exactly.
What made what is.
Yes.
Sure,
right?
And this is a very influential film. It's just, and especially with modern day sensibilities, I don't think this holds up
quite as well. Yeah, I agree. I'll agree at the end of the day. So yeah, soft 0.
Before we move on. Any final thoughts, Rich?
None.
Okay. So, I'll give the
With
final scores. Scott and Steve-O gave it an 8.
No. Hold on. I think Scott gave it a 7. Because of the 0. You gave it a 0 on recommend?
Yep.
Okay.
That's an 8.
Yep, I believe that is correct.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I was going to 9 into it. Go on.
My mistake. I'm sorry.
He's a better detective than you. Go.
2 8s, and I gave it a 6, which I absolutely agree with for this film.
Agree with your own score.
I disagree.
Well, sometimes I give it a higher score or lower
Sure.
score than I thought. Nonetheless, giving a 7.33 overall.
I think that's pretty fine.
Yes. And I think, oddly enough, but here's the thing is, I think you'll get people who don't despise this film, but fit in my camp with their view of it. You know, people who love this film.
Yeah.
And it's not a 7.33 overall. It's the aggregate of different passions for this film. And it'll be swayed that way. So, again, it's fair overall for that reason.
As I said earlier, I'll give another shout out to my dad, my pops, who was the first one that introduced me to this movie. I'm sure he would give it a 10. I don't think it deserves a 10, but certainly there are people that
shows the taste of your father.
There are certainly people that really love this movie, and that's why it's so high. And I think that has a lot to do with I think people that have been reviewing movies for a long time hold this movie in very high regard.
Yeah, and I can see why.
Sure.
But that's my final thought. I can see why. It's just, I guess the millennial or whatever viewpoint of it gave it a little.
It's a little
score.
rusty at this point. Sure.
So I'm Jonathan Ian Manzer here with the star of the show, Rich Perry.
Have a good night.
He's been there the whole time, people.
Stephen Ramosi.
Have a good one.
And Scott Thiller.
And we must go to Constantinople to find a golden chicken. Good night. See you next time.
We hope you've enjoyed your stay.
Masterpiece Theatre.
Join us again next time, won't you?
Masterpiece Theatre.
Editing and engineering by Jonathan Ian Manzer. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.
Masterpiece Theatre.